Welcome to the Steady Road Home podcast, where each week we're going to discuss topics about what it means to keep steady toward your physical, spiritual, and mental health goals. Join me as I talk to people from all walks of life and discussing what the meaning of home is to them, how they've tackled hard topics in their careers, relationships, and faith, and where they see themselves going from here. I'll also be discussing these topics through a biblical worldview. Thanks so much for being here today. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Steady Road Home podcast. My name is Deneen, and I am so excited that you're here today. So today on the initial episode, I wanted to just take a moment to tell the story about how I ended up here, what the purpose of this podcast is, what the name even means, and some of what God has been doing in my life to get me to this point. So take a journey with me for just a moment, back to the early 90s. I received my very first camera. It was a Polaroid camera, and it actually sits right here next to me on the chair. There was something just so exciting about a Polaroid camera. There still is, which is why they're still around. You've got this little box and you take the photo and a little tiny square box comes out and the photo starts to develop right before your eyes. I know that when I was younger, I started to realize that this was an exciting way to tell stories and to have a tangible thing where you could attach it to a memory. And to me, that became something so important. Over the years, I took many photos, many poorly lit, terribly framed photos, but I was capturing memories. I actually have a couple of the photos here, and one of them is of my grandmother. And I just think of how valuable it is to have a tangible memory, to have something that you can attach memory to and hand those stories to other people and really share with other people a story that's in your heart to share. Fast forward to today, where I've had the opportunity to shoot weddings, events. I've been able to do photography for jobs. And then slowly over time, it morphed into videography. And then I had a really cool opportunity where I got to work and learn how to do videography. God has been so good over the years, and He's really given me so many opportunities to grow in my photography and, like I said, videography as well. And I've come to a place where I really started realizing that as my relationship with God grew as well, He started to reveal to me how I was going to use this specific skill to share His gospel. But I didn't know what that looked like yet. And I was kind of going over all the details in my head of, oh, it has to look this way and it has to be perfect and blah, 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 blah. And I started to realize I was so harping on the fact that it had to look perfect. I had to be perfect. As you can tell, I'm a bit of a perfectionist. And over time, I realized, Deneen, that is so unrealistic. And it's I know that to be true, but I was still trying to do the best that I could. And hear me, I think that everyone should strive toward their best. I really do. In fact, that's kind of going to be part of my message here with the Steady Road Home. But it doesn't mean that you have to have it all figured out to begin. In fact, that's where you begin, where you don't have it figured out and you're able to figure it out along the way. So this is something that God has been working in my heart over time as I've been learning and developing and growing and trying to really see from His view what it looks like to be perfect. In Matthew 5:48 in the Bible, God says, "Be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect." Now, this is within a context, right? It's in the context of the Bible. And in the context of the Bible, the only way that I can be perfect is through Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. There's no other way. I can strive, I can try my hardest, and it's just not going to happen. So we'll talk more about that. I do really want to dive into the subject of what it looks like to follow after Jesus. That's kind of the point of this entire podcast. And so I was trying to think of a name for this podcast because God put this podcast in my heart to do. But I was also trying to think of a name for a business in general because I have some other things that I'm getting into. And it's not about the perfectionism and having it all figured out. It's what's the next step? What can you be doing first? And the thing is, that's such a simple concept that we all understand, right? That you're not going to have it all figured out. You got to take the first steps. We know that. I know that. But to live it out is a completely other thing. And so that's where I'm at right now. I really want to live that out. I really want to be faithful to that. Doing my best looks like, thinking about my health, thinking about my spiritual walk, my mental health, all of that. And striving toward a better version of myself is wrapped in all of that. And so over time, I started to realize, okay, God, it's about like the road home, right? I was really going over in my head, like, what does home mean to me? And I came to the conclusion that home is to be in the presence of the Lord. People talk about heaven all the time as like this great place that you go, this great place that you end up. But heaven is to be in the presence of the Lord. And for me, home being two things. One, heaven. As a Christian, like that's my goal, is to make it to home. But then also like I started getting into this concept of homesteading, and like what millennial hasn't, right? Especially during the pandemic, we're all baking like sourdough bread, and I definitely made sourdough bread. It's really, really good. But I also just really love working with my hands. I love being creative. I love being resourceful. And this whole concept of homesteading to me just sounded so amazing. To be clear too, I also have a bit of a leaning toward that, because growing up, I grew up in what people probably consider a crunchy granola household. And at the time, it was not cool. Like it was not cool at all. I had like rice milk in my cereal and almond milk in my cereal. But I will say I'm very grateful to my parents, very grateful to my mom for who was the lead on that, for prioritizing our health and making that like the focus. And my mom is an RN, so her focus, was the medical field. But at the end of the day, she prefers to do, and we as a family prefer to do things more naturally. And then of course, if you need a medicine, so be it. That's okay. But to start off with what you can do. And so I have kind of been more inclined, as I said, to be a part of this homesteading lifestyle. I really got into the idea of canning and jarring, and, even just like meal prep is something that's kind of a part of that as well. But it's being resourceful, it's saving your money, it's doing everything from your own kitchen, from your own home. And that includes, laundry detergent and hair products and skin products and everything. And so the idea of homesteading feels very natural for me to fall into. So I've kind of got this goal, right, of wanting to do a homestead, and I've started with internal practices, so like doing that within my own home already. I might not own land, I might not be growing my own food just yet. I have house plants. That's about as much as I have right now, and these ones behind me on set are those are fake, but I promise I have actual plants in the house, and I do enjoy taking care of them, although I have killed a few, I won't lie. And so, yeah, I've been striving toward home, right? Trying to figure out, what does the road home look like? I kept coming up with this name of the road home, and I was like, there's no way though. Like that name is going to be taken in so many different capacities. Like I'm sure somebody already has, a website, The Road Home, or a business, The Road Home. And I was like, there's no way. Like, how am I supposed to do this? But I was like, God, help me out here. Cause I feel like you're showing me like the whole, like the road home concept, but I can't really like figure out how to make that work, knowing good and well that this name was definitely taken. And so I was praying one day, and God brought me to the Psalms, and I came up to Psalm 119, 133, which says, "Keep steady my steps according to your promise, and let no iniquity get dominion over me." And I was like, that's it. Like that is it. That's the name, the steady road home, because that word steady, like God really emphasized that to me, and it jumped out at me. It was like, oh, that's kind of the whole message. Like that's the whole point. It's not just about the road home. Like it's about keeping steady. It's not about the perfectionism and having it all figured out, even though it's a concept that we all understand. I just want to be an encouragement, and I also want to stay encouraged in keeping steady. The other part of this podcast is I really want to have people on from all walks of life, all careers, all backgrounds, to talk about like, how have you been keeping steady in your walk? What has that looked like for you in your career, in your relationships, in just like your day-to-day, in your health, your mental health, spiritual health, all of that? What does it look like? And so I have some exciting conversations coming up that I can't wait for you guys to hear. I'm really excited to have people on the podcast and to just discuss what that has looked like for them in their own walk. And I also want to leave room to speak with people who I don't necessarily hold the same worldview as. I want to talk to people in a candid way, in an open way. I think that you bridge gaps and you create opportunity for connecting and understanding people when you can talk to people who don't necessarily agree with your worldview. You could be on completely opposite ends of the spectrum, but I think it is important to talk to people, and you can still hold firm to what you believe and still hear another person and have grace for them. So that's something that is very valuable and important to me. And then to also share biblical truth with you, to talk about theology and just really explore so many topics about how God is working in my life, but I'd also love to hear how he's working in your life. And if you don't have a relationship with God, I still want to hear your perspective. I still want to, again, sit down with people who don't necessarily agree with me, and to hear more about their walk. So yeah, I want to leave you with this. Whatever it is you're doing, if you feel that the Lord has called you to it, keep steady in that. Keep going. There is something really beautiful when you push through the hard parts. And I've had to learn that, and I'm still learning that, and I want to continue learning that, and being a person who doesn't give up, but keeps walking forward, even when things are not figured out, even when things are not perfect. So that's my encouragement to you, and that's what this podcast will be about. So thank you so much for tuning into this first episode. I look forward to what is to come. In the meantime, keep steady.